few weeks ago, I headed out to the local bushland around my area to take a look at some of the local wildlife, and I absolutely enjoyed that, both filming and doing it so much more than I thought I would. So this time I've stepped up my game and I've headed out to Mount Nebo. And here it is rainforest, unlike the dry eucalypt forest that I was in last time, which means that we're going to have a much greater diversity of animals to look at. So let's get started. The moist rainforest condition and abundance of rotting wood made this an ideal habitat for one enchanting little critter that I was going to be seeing a lot of. Among these rotting logs, there is one type of arthropod that you are almost bound to encounter. This is a millipede. Exactly what species, I am not particularly sure, and chances are it's an undescribed one, because in Australia there are a number of undescribed millipedes, but what I can say is it belongs to the group Duliformia, the round-backed millipedes. The duliformed millipedes themselves are subdivided into three extant, in other words, still living, orders: Dulida, Spirobolida, and Spirostreptida. Both of the millipedes shown here belong to the Spirobolida, characterized by the pronounced median suture that runs down the front of their head, in addition to their comparatively rather robust build. The medial suture is indicated in this image as the joint between the exoskeletal plates on this millipede's head. Millipedes are some of the most ancient terrestrial animals known. Fossils identifiable as them have been found in rocks that date back to over 420 million years old. Back then, they would have grazed on the primitive plants that were at the time just beginning to clothe the earth, something that their descendants all these years later continue to do. The fact that they have undergone such little evolutionary change over such immense spans of time is clear testimony to their incredible success. Millipedes seem as though they would be easy pickings for any predators out there. They're fairly large, quite easily noticed, and their speed is unimpressive to say the least. Yet, they have very few predators, and for good reason. When provoked, they are capable of secreting noxious chemicals which form a very effective deterrent against a wide range of potential predators. Many tropical species advertise this fact by having bright warning coloration on their bodies, known scientifically as aposematic coloration. The majority of millipede species are detritivores, meaning they feed on decaying organic matter, in this case mostly leaves and logs. Thus, they perform a vital role in ecosystems, recycling dead matter and allowing it to re-enter the food web. The robust and round-backed spirobolids are perhaps the most familiar order of millipedes out there, and with around 500 species currently described, they boast a reasonable degree of diversity. However, there is another order of millipedes here whose species richness far outshines the spirobolids. This bizarre millipede is a member of the order Polydesmida, the largest order of millipedes containing around 3,500 described species. Polydesmids are commonly known as flat-backed millipedes due to the presence of lateral keels on the sides of each of their body segments, known as paranota. In this individual, they aren't quite as prominently large as they are in some other species, yet their white coloration still makes them stand out quite easily. Paranota are most likely a defense mechanism used by these animals. For instance, they make the animal appear to be much larger and much wider than it actually is. In addition to this, when the millipede coils up in the typical defensive position, the sharp edges of the paranota stick out, making the millipede a very difficult mouthful for any potential predators. This defensive function is a plausible reason for the fact that the paranota are often quite brightly coloured, typically contrasting rather strongly with the coloration on the rest of the animal. Their flattened bodies and noticeably longer legs than most other millipedes mean that polydesmids are rather often confused with centipedes. And while they do undeniably bear a much stronger resemblance to centipedes than many other millipedes do, the two animals can nevertheless be quite easily distinguished from one another. One very reliable way to distinguish millipedes from centipedes is to examine the number of legs per body segment. In centipedes, each segment bears only a single pair of legs, in other words, 2 legs. However, in millipedes, the majority of the body segments bear 2 pairs of legs, with the exception of the first 4 segments counting from the anterior end, with the first segment containing no legs whatsoever, and the following 3 bearing only a single pair of legs each. Yet the diversity of the millipedes in this habitat does not end here. There is another, very unique group to be found. One could be very well excused for thinking that this animal is not a millipede at all, but of course, you would be mistaken. This millipede is a member of the superorder Onychomorpha, colloquially known as the pill millipedes due to their tendency to roll up into a ball when disturbed. The onychomorphs are themselves divided into 2 living taxa, the glomerids and the spherotherids. This individual belongs to the latter group, characterized by the presence of large, kidney-shaped compound eyes in addition to a Gondwanan distribution. Conversely, the compound eyes of glomerids, if present at all, consist only of a single row of ocelli, and unlike the spherotherids, they are restricted predominantly to the northern hemisphere. The name Onychomorpha comes from these millipedes' strong resemblance to another group of arthropods, the Onyskidia, commonly known as the woodlice. However, these 2 taxa are not closely related whatsoever. The woodlice are in fact crustaceans and are more closely related to crabs and lobsters than they are to millipedes. The superficial resemblance the 2 animals bear is instead a result of convergent evolution, which is where different organisms exposed to similar selection pressures evolve similar features independently of one another. The slow, lumbering millipedes were exceptionally easy to film, but the same could not be said about another critter that was found in these forests. This is a hunter with a need for speed, a spider in the family Sparacidae, commonly known as the huntsman. This particular individual belongs to the genus Heteropoda. The huntsmen are a widely distributed and diverse family of spiders containing over 1,000 described species. Yet in spite of the admittedly rather menacing appearance of some of the larger species, huntsmen pose little to no threat to humans. These spiders, as you could possibly guess from their common name, are not ambush predators like many others, but active hunters. They are exceptionally fast and agile on their feet, and are capable of running rapidly not only forwards but even sideways. This allows them to grab prey approaching from almost any direction. The size and hairy appearance of many of the larger species of huntsmen leads to them being occasionally confused with tarantulas, to which they are only distantly related. One of many ways to distinguish between the 2 spiders is to look at the orientation of the animal's fangs. In mygalomorphs, like tarantulas, the fangs point roughly parallel to each other and strike downwards. In araneomorphs, like huntsmen, they curve inwards towards each other like a pair of pincers. Furthermore, huntsmen have a distinctive eye arrangement, where their 8 eyes are divided into 2 rows of 4, spaced out quite widely and evenly across the front of the carapace. So those were all the animals filmed well enough to warrant a main feature on this video. But there was a whole host of other creatures whose appearances were much too brief to allow them to be properly detailed, and this portion of the video is dedicated to giving them the recognition that they deserve. First up is this trapdoor spider in the genus Arbanitis, briefly responding to a lure before returning to the safety of her burrow. Here is a rather impressive array of beetle larvae. Now, I'll be the first to admit I know bugger all about beetles, but hey, this looks bloody cool and there's no way I'm not including it in the video. Here is the home site of the funnel-web species Hadroniki fencer. Now, I probably would have given this spider a bigger feature had I not already talked about it in my last upload. Continuing on with the spider theme, this is the burrow of another Arbanitis species, except this one, as you can see, builds a long, thin tube extending above its burrow. Well, that's this video pretty much done, but I felt like including some extra footage of the huntsman spider, just so you guys can see me, suffer. Get right here. Oh, please tell me you were filming that.
Yes.
Yeah, could you sit? Hey! Calm the down. Oh, the very moment my channel stopped being kid-friendly. Hey!
Where that jumped down on your leg? I thought, or somewhere between your legs.
Is it on my back? Oh, it's on my back. Hi.
Ah.
Hey.
Oh, he's gone in.
Oh boy. Huntsmen do calm down after a while, so it's gonna see it's already. Oh, it pooed on me. Look at see the white spots on my hand. All right. Oh, just when I thought it was calming down a bit.